remember being sat in class once. I remember struggling to breathe. My mind was trapped in this really negative space. Something bad was going to happen to me. I was going to die. I was going to fail. I can't breathe. Like, I need to leave the classroom. The first step in my high performance journey was really adapting a real positive mindset. I couldn't believe how good you could physically feel. So that's when I really started getting addicted to the feeling of maximizing energy every single day. I hate feeling comfortable in any situation. You can do so much more.
That is one of the worst things that really damages ourselves, our society, going after short-term gratification.
You cannot grow when you're comfortable, like at all. And life is just constantly about growth.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Get Real show. We are back for our first episode in quite a bit and actually relocated down to Miami. We are here with Harry today to discuss overcoming anxiety, unwavering discipline, motivation, and really just a rock hard mindset overall, and him making the move as well to Miami from quite a bit further than myself. So
over the pond we say.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Harry.
Nice, it's great to be here. It's a great setup. Looking forward to having a great conversation with you, Maddie.
Absolutely. Well, I really wanted to have yourself on in particular because I think you really stand out compared to so many people in today's age with your mindset and really just how you operate as a whole. I would really love to understand where you feel like that comes from, if you feel like that was something you were born with or you've developed, and where you started with this unwavering discipline.
Oh, well, very flattering introduction, I must admit. It's a great question. In terms of like a bulletproof mindset, I don't personally believe anybody's born with any like kind of, special mindset or anything like that. Naturally, it's, kind of certain things that may occur, things like that. Now, for me personally, I can't say that it was a particular kind of moment that really like transform me into like kind of going into a particular way or kind of mindset. Now, probably one particular moment, I know you touched on it earlier on in terms of overcoming anxiety. There's a particular kind of point in my life, right, where there was a lot going on. I was going through exams, things like that. I was about 15 years old. I went through some kind of particular areas like panic attacks, anxiety. And that really kind of triggered, I'd probably say, certain points from a mindset perspective, what really kind of drove me in terms of like where I am now, particularly, kind of areas where I've really seen a lot of improvement, particularly across the last 4 or 5 years, really. So there's multiple things that I'd say have happened. But one thing that I like to emphasize is like no one's born with like a really, really special mindset. You probably see it as well, right? Yeah. I think we're quite similar. You're probably a level above me in terms of discipline, Maddie.
I don't know
the 2:30 wake ups in the morning that I see are nutty. I'm a 4:45 person, but I'll probably say that's really where it stemmed from. There's a couple other areas that I know we'll probably cover today as well. But I'd probably say when I was about 15, 16, really, I kind of, that's where from a mindset perspective, I think positivity was a real kind of standpoint on that as well, and having to adapt more of a positive mindset to overcome that essentially and then go from there.
Yeah, I feel like I really see quite often a culmination of someone having a spark inside them from a young age or just a desire to want to do big things and great things, and then having to face some sort of adversity at some point in their life. And a mixture of all of that really creates this, is from what I've seen. Do you feel like you remember when you were younger really having big dreams or big ambition, or that's something that you feel like happened after you were 15, 16?
I think I've always, big dreams and ambitions. I probably, from a sports perspective, I've always been a very sporty individual. You see it, right? I'm quite competitive with a lot of things that I do.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I wouldn't say from a lifestyle standpoint, when I was young, 12, 13 or that sort of age, I wanted to live in a mansion or, somewhere like Miami, right?
Yeah.
Or drive a particular car. It was more so a competitive nature that I was in, that maybe kind of allows me to have the discipline now. In terms of then, like you mentioned, it is something that came at a later age. COVID shaped a lot of that for me as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to as well. But yeah, I'd probably say when I was 18 or 19, 18, I'd probably say, I got my first job in London, right? Obviously, originally from London, I mentioned I moved across the pond, 9 months ago over to Miami. But working in London, it was a real kind of drive for me, from a motivation standpoint, to be more successful. It's really what I wanted to do. And so it is something that probably came later and then, started to kind of increase. Throughout the years, I worked in London for 7.5 years in total. So that's really where that kind of motivation, started increasing really when I was working there.
Very interesting. So I know you mentioned having these anxiety attacks when you were 15, 16. Can you delve a little deeper into really what that experience was like for yourself and how you feel like that shaped you moving forward?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I think when I was about 14, 15, again, I mentioned that I wasn't special at all, right? I wasn't an A grade student, far from it. I was a good sports person, but I was never going to make it in sports, right? In terms of, it's probably too late for me at that point. I was 15 years old. I wasn't excelling in a particular area. I've always played golf, football, athletics. I've done different things. The kind of the fear was really about being no one. Honestly, is where it really stemmed from. And I had this real phobia of essentially failing. As a student, as a person, everything like that. And it put a lot of pressure on myself, right? I didn't know a lot about mental health at all when I was 14, 15 years old, being transparent. And I remember being sat, I'm more than happy to be open about it. I've spoken to a lot of people about it, but I remember being sat in class once and I was, I remember struggling to breathe, right? And naturally, I now know that it was all in my head. I remember saying, I can't breathe, I need to leave the classroom, right? And that's really where it stemmed from. I'd never had any form of mental problem, like mental health issue or anything like that. Left and I obviously went for checks and things like that, had nothing wrong with me. And it's like, well, why has that happened, right? And then it continued to happen a week after. It's like, I had indigestion, say. I was like, I'm having a heart attack. What's going on? And it was like, my mind was trapped in this really negative space where I think anything bad was happening, something bad was going to happen to me, whether it was I was going to die, whether I was going to fail, something like that, right? And it was a time when naturally my exams were happening. So it was a very maybe higher pressure kind of moment really. And I just kept thinking, honestly, my whole thought process was, if I fail, I just am going to live such a sub-mediocre life that I don't want to live, but didn't really know how to get out of this mindset. So we mentioned about positivity, and it's probably the first step in my high performance journey was really adapting a real positive mindset. I don't know, you're around me a lot. Obviously, you and I work together, and you probably you can probably tell that I try and see a lot of positive in everything, and naturally the law of attraction, things like that, naturally by kind of putting out, and getting back what you do put out, that is something that I've really, really tried to adapt. So sort of following on from that, it was like a 5-6 month journey, really trying to see the positive, understanding, what is actually happening, to then obviously, fully kind of essentially understand and really kind of grow from there.
Yeah, no, I know that can be so scary when you have no idea what is going on. And I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to educate people, because panic attacks can feel like you're actually having a heart attack or you actually can't breathe.
Cool. Yeah.
Which is petrifying.
What's mad about it, sorry to interrupt, but people, you can almost only people that have gone through it really understand. And when people are first initially going through it, it's so hard to actually explain what's happening because you're trapped in that mindset. It's not something you can just change overnight. Yeah. But naturally, once you do start to change it, it's not just that changes. In particular, say with those issues, the fear of failing, or the fear of something bad happening or anything like that. It's then when you actually start to leverage that in a positive way, all the positive and amazing things that can happen to you as well. Not just getting out of a negative rut, but once you're then, in a positive mindset, the different things that you can attract that we've probably both seen, right, is amazing.
Definitely. Yeah, it seems like it obviously was being a bit triggered by the exams and the fear of failure, but also this fear and awareness of death. Do you feel like that's something that you thought about at a younger age, or you feel like this was just coming up as you were thinking about next steps in life with these exams and what you would go on to following the grades you would get on
No,
them?
100%. I think I've always been I was a very scared child, and that doesn't stem from I had a great upbringing, everything like that, but everything, I had a massive fear of heights. I had a massive fear of flying. I had a massive fear of the ocean. I was scared about a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And that is something that continued, to happen. And it's something that's probably gone away the last 5 or 6 years, right? And when I look back at it and think, why am I not scared of dying anymore or anything like that? It is, what it was almost like not fulfilling a story or a particular journey that's worth talking about. And I think once you then start to embark on that journey and understanding naturally everything happens for a reason, right? But actually fulfilling and living or making the most out of every single day, you actually be able to, you're able to accept everything that happens. So initially I'm scared of all of these things and it's, why? Mm-hmm. And then sort of going through day by day after that, sort of knowing that every single day I'm making the most out of every single day. It's not only is it a more positive mindset, but it's something that you can't be scared of anything bad happening because you're making the most out of every single day. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like that's something very common too in people that really try to push boundaries and make sure they're maximizing life is people that initially had these fears or were, because I was very similar. I was petrified. I had an acute awareness of death from a alarmingly young age.
Yeah.
And just was scared of a lot. I never felt like I naturally fit in or nothing felt natural to me the way that it seemed to happen for other people, where I would even be anxious having conversations or speaking for quite a while. So I think that it almost pushes you or gives you an extra edge when you do go through these things to almost use it as fuel because you're so aware of the fact that we have limited time here and that these fears obviously can actually push us to a greater purpose and we can utilize them in a positive way.
100%. I'm such a firm believer, like I've said to you many times, right? Everything happens for a reason. I genuinely do believe that. Any big decision that I have to make in life, I really look for signs, what has happened over the last month to tell me the decision that I'm going to take, right? And looking back at these times now, they've really made me in terms of the person, the discipline, the vision, and the persistence that I have today in terms of everything that I do want to go and achieve. The positivity that I've adapted from that particular mindset, but then also in terms of the next steps after that, right? I know we touched on COVID and things like that, but different things in terms of how things have shaped me that almost could have gone either way, right? Yeah. As I mentioned, COVID was a time where previously I mentioned, I went to work in London, I was a big drinker, right? I'd spend the weekends and it's something that I think everyone goes through that stage, right? Where, alcohol, it's a funny topic, how people, use it and different things like that. And I think I went through a stage, right, of about 4 years where I probably would go through every single Thursday to Sunday drinking. And, I had some great times of it, everything like that. But it was just a cycle every single week, and you may know about it, but it's okay, cool. So you drink from Thursday through to Sunday, yeah? Obviously, Monday you feel like absolute rubbish. Tuesday you're probably at 40%. Wednesday you're at 60%. Thursday you're back up to 80%. You're never actually at 100%, ever. And I went through, 2-3 years of doing that, got in a bit of a cycle about it, was able still to perform from a professional standpoint doing it, but COVID happened, right? And naturally, everyone was locked up, in lockdown, everything like that. You couldn't leave your place. And I remember I never used to drink at home, ever. Alcohol was never a problem for me. I'd use it as a social I'd leverage it in social environments. I remember being sat at home, right, and was there for 6 weeks in total. And I remember, I hadn't drunk for 6 weeks. And after like 1 or 2 weeks, I didn't feel the urge to drink at all. Like, I didn't need to. Like, it was just more so being around my friends. It was great fun. We had great memories, everything like that. I remember after 2 weeks, I'm working out every day. I remember thinking like, oh my God, how great is it? How great do I feel right now? 3 weeks goes by, I feel even better. 4 weeks goes by, I feel even better. 5 weeks go by. And it's like, I couldn't believe how good you could physically feel and, what alcohol actually, kind of does to you. I'm not sober. Like, I say that. I drink a handful of times a year. But from that situation, that's really when I started. So like positivity was first for me, then energy was a big thing. So like having all of this energy, it's like, well, okay, this is amazing. How can I use that in further different things? So that's when I really started, kind of getting addicted to the feeling of maximizing energy every single day. Do you know what I mean? From that standpoint.
Definitely.
So, kind of driving that. And then I think, as when it comes from energy, like all of the other areas that you can use to increase that, nutrition, working out, all of these different things. So COVID was a real kind of probably pillar in that. So when everyone did come out of lockdown, I still did use, alcohol, but I used it in particular situations as opposed to going out every single weekend as I used to.
Yeah.
So they're the two like main, I'll probably say in terms of how it shaped me, how I am now, they're the two main kind of main milestones from an early age, before 20 years old, that probably I'd say started like a high performance journey for me.
Yeah. I think people don't realize how much alcohol actually does affect you. Like, obviously I'm sober, where I did have a problematic relationship with alcohol, but you see so many people today that don't have issues with alcohol or don't necessarily have to stop wanting to stop now because you see the direct correlation with higher anxiety, higher depression levels, just not feeling exactly how you put it, never feeling 100%. And I think that sometimes you really have to take a step back and think, how much of myself, how much of my potential do I want to use or utilize? And if you're drinking regularly, you're really not able to get there. So I think that's amazing that you were able to see that and make that step. And I never push my lifestyle or views on people ever. And I think that it's great if you can have the relationship where you drink a couple times a year for big events, but in your everyday, like there's really no reason to be putting something so harmful in your body on the regular.
I agree. I think I understand from both sides. I would never tell anybody how to live their life, right? Naturally, if someone comes to me, in terms of, well, how do you have this relationship with, let's say, yourself, with alcohol, with the way that your energy is day in, day out, the first thing I naturally do say is, what is your relationship with alcohol like? How many times will you drink, right? And it goes back to what I was saying earlier on in terms of that percentage of every single day that you have. If you drink at a weekend, the Monday that you go in below 50%, everything like that, right? So it's one of the first things that I, will always understand. But I think just understanding, like I say, I never really had an out and out problem with alcohol. It's not like I couldn't steer away from it. I think it's more so understanding what situations do you want to use it and what situations is it worth using it as well. Pre-planning them as well. Never having a point where you'll just drink that night or for the sake of it, and it's just a blip, in terms of it just coming up. So I get it from both sides.
Yeah.
But I do also firmly believe that if you want to reach the elite levels of performance, alcohol is something that will massively hold you back, right?
Yeah. I think it's important too to try to see, why am I using it? Why do I like it? How does it make me feel, and how am I putting that into my life? Like, I would use it, like how I said, I would get quite nervous in social situations. I would be nervous talking to men. I would be nervous at big parties. So I would use it as a social lubricant to help me be more of myself, when really it's doing the exact opposite. And I think if you don't ever make the switch or recognize that you could end up, I stopped drinking when I was 21 years old. You can end up 30 years old, 35 years old, not being able to have real conversations, not being able to know the depth and quality of relationships that you can have out there if you're not able to actually step away and think, what are my shortcomings that I'm using alcohol to really make up for, and how do I just make up for it without the alcohol? And then you're not only becoming a better person, but you're also just accumulating so many skill sets that you can bring into relationships with friends, partners, family, business, and you can actually leverage what you're learning along the way.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I think it's also like a sharpness thing as well, right? I mean, alcohol, it does like slug you out a little bit. I mentioned earlier on about signs and everything like that. And I think when your energy is at a maximum, you see all of the signs that you need to take in your life. Like I mentioned that, everything happens for a reason. I do believe that. But when you are, maximizing your energy daily, you see these signs in terms of what you need to take. Like we'll come on to, I'm sure, how I made the move out to Miami and things like that. Now, that was a decision that was just so easy for me. Like some people say like moving country must be the most difficult decision you'll ever make. Honestly, it's the most easy decision I've ever had to make. Like just by seeing the signs, like I think over the last 5 years, the most difficult decisions that I've ever had to make that someone would think from the outside have been so easy for me to make because of me understanding what's happened like recently that's telling me that I should make that decision. I'm sure you see similar as well, right? But there's something that I think when you start seeing that and you start seeing opportunities present themselves because you are, alert, sharp, you've got high energy, you're attracting great things. When you see this, it makes you want to steer away from these things that may jeopardize your energy or jeopardize your positivity because you're creating so many opportunities for yourself.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because you said a couple times about seeing these signs, are you religious? Do you feel like these are signs from the universe? Like how do you think about that? Like what are these signs?
Yeah, it's a great question. Do you know what? It's one that this year I've really been trying to, I've been trying to use every single, or kind of get a catalyst in every single area to maximize everything, whether that be from a physical standpoint, physical health, mental health, spiritually, like everything. I've been trying to really kind of maximize every area. Am I religious? At the moment, I'd probably say that I'm not. Like I won't go to church every Sunday or anything like that. Do I believe in a higher power? Like 100%, definitely. I believe that there's too many things that happen that don't just happen for no reason. Are you with me?
100%,
and with that in mind, like whether those signs present themselves from, religious kind of side of things or, like you mentioned earlier or from a higher power, I'm not too sure. But I mean, that's my kind of view, but it's something that I want to increase and understand more about 100%.
Definitely. So do you feel like you create opportunity by being the best version of yourself and putting your energy and attraction out into the universe? Or do you almost feel like our life is mapped out and we're navigating and figuring things out already?
I think the way I look at it, you've got like every day you've got different roads that you can go down, right? Different avenues you can go down, right? And I think that, to a certain extent, everything is, you do have everything mapped out, but I think, the different roads will take you to different ways. Do you know what I mean? So like when we're talking about the opportunities that, may present themselves and things like that, I personally think that I'm a big fan in, kind of attracting attracting everything from the energy that you put out, right? So with that in mind, I think you kind of get an understanding of what the universe is telling you and the roads that you need to go down. That's something that I'm a big believer in. So like I say, I'm not too sure in terms of where that does stem from. But yeah, I mean, from that side of things, it's something that I really do try and look out for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that I try to figure out and go back and forth with, because trying to decipher, because I do believe in God and I feel like the signs are pretty obvious sometimes. And then other times I think it's hard to figure out, because I always say something that really helps me is that it's God's plan, not my plan.
Right.
And that kind of takes the element of control out of things, which makes things a little bit easier. But then sometimes I also believe that you have to make things happen.
100%.
So then trying to figure out in certain situations, like, which one is it? Like, am I supposed to be experiencing, let's say, so I moved to Miami recently, and it was definitely a big shift for myself, and trying to find my footing here has been a little bit difficult compared to being in New York, and trying to figure out, like, I'm under the belief, because I saw the same thing. I saw multiple signs that I was meant to come down here. But then when you're here, figuring out, like, what exactly is that plan, and having to go out there and make things happen and figure things out for yourself. I think it's definitely sometimes confusing trying to figure out the two of that.
100%. I'm massive on, like, a story as well, like creating a story. And what you mentioned there in terms of, like, I know you love New York, right? But coming down here is all part of the story, and, like, you know, how you can tell that, you know, kind of one day, 100%. Like what you touched on there as well, like in terms of God's plan, and, you know, how you kind of leverage that, obviously, you know, to kind of mapping out your story and everything like that. I think it's also like understanding that bad things do happen in life, like they do, right? And there's two ways to go about, you know, bad things. Naturally, bad, you know, like I say, bad things always do happen. But I think when you understand, you know, what lessons you can learn from every single area, like if something's going bad, you know, why is it going bad? What's that telling you? What lesson are you going to learn from that? Mm-hmm. And then kind of implementing it into the future, whatever then may happen, or, you know, what particular area that might be telling you about a particular, you know, another area. Mm-hmm. I think that is, you know, something where maybe other individuals kind of can be a bit of a victim kind of mindset, right? Yeah. That we see quite frequently. Mm-hmm. So I try and use every single bad or negative kind of bit of news or anything as a positive and as a lesson. Mm-hmm. Understanding, right, okay, what's that going to teach me now? You know, that must be telling me something about my life right now. What is it? Yeah. And I think having that mindset of understanding, in particular, what lesson am I learning from that thing going bad, mm-hmm. kind of allows you to improve every single day. 100%. And then, you know, naturally, like I say, things will be more bad than others, right? But when you kind of understand that, like, you then kind of leveraging it into a positive, which again, like, it kind of just taps into that mindset of becoming better every day. Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something I've used for years. I saw there was a Navy SEAL that did like a short, intense clip about basically everything bad that happens to you is good, because it's teaching you a lesson. Agree. It's making you stronger. And 100% what you said about the victim mentality, I think that's prevalent in today's culture and really pushes people backwards. Like, it's okay that bad things happen. In fact, sometimes it's good that bad things happen, because it's actually pushing you to learn a lesson that you're meant to learn. I always say, when you're going through a bad time, it always means something so great is around the corner. Like, always. Like, the best things usually come out of the worst things that happen. Like, mm-hmm. say you go for a breakup, right? You know, like, I went through a relationship, you know, things like that, maybe like 3 years ago, whenever it was, like, and that really stemmed me to really drive. And, you know, within a short space of time at my previous occupation, like, I was very, very successful within like 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. And that straight away after a breakup, it gave me a mindset of really understanding, like, well, I've got a point to prove to myself here. Do you know what I mean? Like, it taps into those particular areas. Some people have it from a bereavement. Some people have it from different areas of their life where you can understand that I personally think the best things happen from initially the worst news that you can possibly imagine. 100. And when you actually believe that, it allows you to tap into a different part of your mind to really go and achieve those great things. Because if you go into a negative mindset, you go into that negative spiral, And if you don't believe it, you won't achieve it, right? So, which is so true.
Yeah. I think a lot of times the strongest people, the hungriest people have been through the craziest or worst things, and deciding in that moment, am I going to use this to push myself forward, or am I going to sit here and be a victim essentially for the rest of my life? So I think it's so important to almost get an extra edge from that. And I know obviously you said that you've mentioned before that relationship during, I believe, COVID times really shaped yourself. How do you feel like that played a role in who you are today?
Yeah, good question. I think it was, John, it was like you go through two different ways, right? When you go through like a relationship, someone will either go out and party all the time, like try and get over somebody that way, like, or you might go through more of a high performance route. Like you understand, kind of different areas of yourself that you can improve to become better, right? With that in mind, I went through 6 months, and that was really kind of when I went through the kind of more of a sober phase. Didn't really drink at all. Like I was working out every single day, become addicted to having all of this energy all the time. That was in 2023. So I think when you become addicted like that, you kind of it takes 3 months to really kind of build a particular habit. And I think when you're kind of building multiple habits across all of these different areas that kind of create a very bulletproof mindset that we mentioned earlier, I think that's where kind of after that, it was like there was no turning back. So I think after that, it was kind of more like saying, it wasn't to anybody else, it was more so to myself, understanding that I'm much better than anything that's happened previously, and I'm going to kind of achieve tenfold what I thought was possible initially. Yeah. So then really understanding, right, okay, what does that look like? And I think having a vision as well is so key. Like something I've done across the last 3 years is, and it can change all the time. Like my vision 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago is so different in 5 years to what it is now. And I don't like a 5-year plan. Like granted, I might have a rough understanding of where I may want to be in 5 years. I think that might be quite key, but to actually just have somewhat of a high level, detailed image of what you look like in 5 years' time, it really then it gives you that discipline to understand, why am I doing these habits every single day? Like habits, it's all well and good. And some people look at from the outside, how can I become a high performer, right? How can I become, why is there such a big difference between me, who doesn't do a lot of these habits, to somebody who has a morning routine from 4:30 in the morning, right? They don't watch any TV, they don't drink, all of these things. I think habits is everything that holds you accountable daily. And I think understanding, right, okay, implementing them gradually every single day and holding yourself accountable to them, tracking, reviewing, all of these things is what the simplest steps to what makes you then a high performer. So it is something that I've managed to do, across the last 2.5 years really, and eventually implement more and more things. You don't become a high performer overnight, as you know, right? Yeah. From a personal like standpoint, from a personal view. So it's just kind of over a prolonged period of time, how can I become 1% better daily? Like something I do daily is I journal, right? I'm religious with journaling. I think it's an amazing tool to be accountable to yourself, but also understand what you can implement daily to become better, right? So every single day I will write 3 things that I am going to hold myself accountable for the next day. 3 intentions that are going to make me 1% better the next day. And they can't be habits that I'm tracking, daily. It might be another 10, 15 minutes in the gym, or it might be, there's so many different things. I might wake up 10 minutes earlier, right? I might meditate for 10 minutes longer, these type of things. But if I do them every single day, and then I'm going to become 3% better every single day, over 365 days, that is, I did the maths the other day, so this is on the spot, don't worry. This is 1,095% better over 1 year. If you do 3 things every single day that you can add in. So I think, there's, naturally there's probably people that we work with, people are going to watch this and think, well, how do I start? And me personally is just every single week having a bit of a habit tracker, understanding, right, am I holding myself accountable to the habits I said I'm gonna implement this week?
Definitely. No, I think that's amazing. And you're very good and disciplined with the tracking and journaling is very good too, to help you actually recognize and see the shifts and the patterns and actually see your work progress. And that's something that I think is super important, to realize how far you've come. Sometimes I overlook, because when you have high standards, you're often very hard on yourself. And sometimes I overlook actually how far I've come. And it's so important to remember that and be grateful for that, but also keep pushing for more and more and more.
100%.
And I really think the same with mindset. Like I always say, building a mindset is like building from multiple bricks. So let's say you build 3 bricks up, 1 falls down, you just have to build 3 again and you're still up. It doesn't mean that along the way bricks aren't falling and you're not facing failures and you're not facing hardships, but you have a better tool set and a better skill set to be able to quickly build back faster and better and stronger when you are used to doing it. And you also have an undeniable proof system that you are who you say you are. So I think it's so important to keep promises to yourself and build on this mindset, because the next time you're in a low patch, you know, I've been here before and I've gotten out of here again and again and again, and I'm going to do it again. And if you don't have that, sometimes it can be harder or take longer to be able to bounce back from things. So it's not about being perfect or striving for perfection. It's about, how can I become a better version of me quicker, or learn these lessons faster? Because I also think that oftentimes we're shown lessons again and again and again, and sometimes have to learn multiple ways. So how can I recognize quicker these lessons that may be destructive or holding me back to get to the next level?
Yeah, definitely. I think from what you mentioned there as well, right, and it's something that is like consistency with everything. Like there are going to be weeks, you know, naturally, like even for myself, there are certain habits that I will not have 7 ticks across a whole week that I do, right? But it's about consistency. Once you kind of, you know, you do it over a prolonged period of time, you know, naturally they become part of your life. Like, you know, journaling, meditating, you know, even like the morning routine, right? I'm so big and I've seen so much, you know, more mental clarity from a morning routine. Really, you know, as we've discussed, it's not quite the 3 a.m.s or 2 a.m.s that you do, Maddie, and the 20-mile runs, but, you know, really owning your morning, right?
Yeah.
Kind of doing something for your mind, spiritually, you know, kind of physically as well. Every single morning, just to set yourself up for the best day possible. Like, whether it be physically, like I used to go to the gym, right, in the evening. I just think so much can happen during the day that you then don't end up going, right? And I just think by having such a great morning routine, you've done all your hard things in the morning. Nothing else can be that much any more difficult than what you've done in the morning. So if you can really set up that routine in the morning, it makes your whole day so much easier.
Yeah, I think even recognizing that people that have these habits aren't immune to not wanting to go or not wanting to do it. Like, at least from my perspective, I still feel that, but then being able to just do it anyway is where the consistency comes into play. And like you mentioned, like sometimes I do have a nutty morning routine where I'm going quite early, but that's not all the time. That's really figuring out what works best for my day and my schedule, but it doesn't mean that it's not hard when I'm doing it. Like, I'm not dreading getting out of bed sometimes. I know this is really insane, but when I'm getting into the pattern of doing it again, sometimes I'll sleep on the floor so that it's easier to get up in the morning. So I'm less comfortable and it pushes me.
That is nutty, isn't it? That is nutty. I don't know if I'm going to go to. I don't know if I'm going to go to that extreme.
I honestly, I don't know if I would recommend it, but I'm just trying to illustrate that, like, it is extremely hard for me. It's not easy for me to wake up. Like, I'm not a robot, but just figuring out, I always think when there's a will, there's a way. So
Do you know what the best thing is with that is like somebody watching this and they're going, yeah, I'm getting up at 7:30 in the morning. Like I'm struggling to get up at 5 a.m. And here's Maddie going, yeah, just sleep on the floor. It's so much easier. It's so much easier. You get about an hour's sleep in the total from about 6 hours rolling around, but you get up easier. So it's good.
Exactly.
That is brilliant.
It's pulling yourself out of comfortability, essentially. But yeah, I'm like that sometimes, and other times I'm not like that. And I think really finding the balance with that is super important. But at the end of the day, it is that consistency that even there's different phases in life. I've definitely come to realize, and sometimes it's not a switched on 24/7 phase. Maybe it's a time to enjoy and relax a bit more. And then when it's time to switch on again, then again, it's having that tool set where I know when it's go time, it's go
100%.
time.
Like there's a few things, right? Like you touched on it, you touched on it earlier, but like no one's going to wake up every single day and feel motivated. Like it doesn't happen. That's where discipline holds you accountable, right? That's where discipline massively kicks in. And I think, what I mentioned earlier is just really understanding why you're doing it. Like why if you don't understand why you're actually doing it for yourself, like it'll be so difficult on those times when you do wake up and think, oh, I really don't want to do this today. Like, to actually go up and do it. And that's where, I've got a mood board, right? And, I've got a mood board in my apartment, and it gives me that understanding, why do I wake up every single day at 4:45? Why do I go to the gym? Why do I eat healthily 7 days a week? Or why do I do all of these things? And it's like, it's that delayed gratification, right? And when you've got that clear picture of why you're doing it, mine's all about, what the vision, but also about the story as well that I'm creating. Like I'd hate to get to an old age and just have no story to be able to tell, right? It's one of the main reasons that I moved to Miami, right? Genuinely, to meet amazing people, these type of things, but really to be able to say, like, I've done amazing things, with my life. And, naturally, like we mentioned earlier, like not every day is going to go to plan, like far from it. But if you can say that every single day I gave 110%, I had the best energy, how can you be disheartened with yourself? Do you know what I mean? And I think also, like, when it comes to balance as well, right? Balance is a term that's thrown around so much. Like everyone believes, you need balance with this, you need balance with that. I do agree, and to a certain extent, like I think my balance really comes from flow state, right? In terms understanding what activities do I completely get escapism from day-to-day life without jeopardizing my energy for later on that day or the next day, right? And I think that's another area. Like some people will say, like, oh, well, I work hard during the week, and the weekends I drink or indulge massively. And I think it's understanding that balance comes in all different shape and forms, but doesn't always have to neglect your energy, like for the next days, right? So 100%. Yeah, like, I mean, there's so many different ways to see that balance and the flow state. I don't think any get better than skydiving yesterday. Like that was it was pretty crazy. Epic. But like, yeah, from your side, Maddie, like I know you do so many things, and people probably like be so keen to understand, because from the outside, right, you are arguably the most disciplined person I've ever come across. Like, I don't know many people that wake up at 2:30 in the morning, run all weekend long, all week long. Like, is there particular activities that you like see balance, or sorry, not balance, but that you kind of get that escapism from?
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for saying that. And I think it's so interesting. Like for me, I don't even feel that way or see myself that way. Like I recognize that I am disciplined in certain facets, but that's very interesting. But because for me, it's just part of who I am and part of what I enjoy doing. So I'm very big on, like, I don't love the term balance when it comes to, I think people try to make this formula almost about balance. And sometimes it's not always that way. Like how I mentioned, sometimes it's just go time. And for 3 months, you have to act like a lunatic and just absolutely go off and lock in.
That's
exactly.
it,
lock in. And other times that might not be priority. So I think really seeing what is my priority right now? Am I trying to travel a bit more, see friends a bit more, or is it time? Is it lock-in time, essentially? But I get my escapism from extreme endurance. And when I start to feel depressed, when I start to feel detached from myself, is when I'm not doing those things. So whether it be mega long cycles, mega long runs, that is my escapism. That's when I feel connected to myself, connected to God, connected to trying to figure out the lessons of life and trying to plan for my future, essentially. So I feel like I'm in flow state when I'm on extreme endurance endeavors. So I definitely see when I'm not doing those things that I'll feel disconnected from myself, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. And is that always like having one like booked in? Is it like further in it? Like
I do like to, have some type of adventure, something booked in. For me, I really like the journey of it. So I used to love trail running up when I'm more in a mountainous location. But down here, I've been biking to the Keys a lot, like going on, it's not just I'm going on this mega long run or bike to like punish myself or just do this because I'm in a eating nails for breakfast state, essentially. It's more so like an actual journey for myself. And it's actually very enjoyable. Like I find when you get a couple hours into any physical endeavor, you're truly in flow state and you're really can face parts of yourself that otherwise I don't think that you would be able to face. And I think that's really important. And what I like to try to figure out is that I learn so much about myself when I'm on these endeavors, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. I used to do like some of the long distance endurance events, not to the scale that you would do them, but I do completely agree. Like that feeling, not only, kind of after, but like you say, like during. I think sometimes it's when you get your most creative ideas as well. Like when you're really kind of there, you're thinking about a lot. Like I used to like running with no headphones, and just kind of just listen and be with it, within your own thoughts. Sometimes it's not the same, but like walking, kind of doing that, being around nature, it just gives you a lot of creativity if you just need that kind of, short break. I see that a lot, but yeah, in endurance, you don't really get much more flow state than that.
Yeah. And I definitely think you mentioned instant gratification. I think that, or delayed gratification rather, I think that that's something that we're really seeing in real time. A lot of people from social media, from our cell phones, from the way that life is structured today are so used to instant gratification. And I think that that is one of the worst things that really damages ourselves, our society, is going after short-term gratification. Always when you chase long-term gratification or just essentially lock into the plan of long-term gratification is when you learn discipline, you learn how to overcome challenges, you learn the ups and downs of any journey and being able to stick with it, rather than instant gratification. I think is just extremely damaging right now. And
100%.
Because of this spike in social media over the last couple of years, I think we're really starting to see that in people and the society as a whole.
I think there's so many quick dopamine rushes, right? Like in today's age, like your TikToks, Instagrams, like everything. I think every decision you make in life, right? You've got two different choices. It's either going to give you that instant, quick dopamine rush, or it's going to give you delayed gratification. I think that is the easiest way to increase your discipline, right? By increasing your discipline, I think that's number one route to, or one of the number one routes to high performance. If you can really, understand that side of things, because as we touched on earlier, right, you're not always going to be motivated, and if you've got those high levels of discipline where you've got that much respect in yourself, you're always, you're always going to be able to, you're always going to be able to show up even when you don't want to, right? So with that in mind, like, I mean, it's very difficult. Like if you can have that discipline to steer away from them or leverage them for good reason, it's great. But I think that's why, individuals and why discipline maybe is lacking now is because of those instant dopamine rushes that people get. Like you see so many people like in the gym nowadays on their phones all the time, right? And a lot of the time it's not doing anything productive. It's just trying to somewhat get away from the task they don't want to do, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, but to increase discipline, naturally it starts within yourself, but it's steering away from these quick dopamine rushes to then give you that discipline increase.
Yeah. I think you really hit the nail on the head with the self-respect, that at the end of the day, it's respecting yourself. It's keeping your word and your commitment to yourself. And I believe if you can't keep those promises to yourself, how do you keep those promises to other people in your life? So it all starts with yourself, and that going to the gym, prioritizing the harder of two things often shows that you're respecting yourself. It's not, I think sometimes it's linked to like, oh, are you just punishing yourself or obsessed with like doing this hard thing for no reason? Like, no, it's actually building self-respect, and it's actually because I care about what my long-term life looks like that I'm going to make that decision today, and having the wit, essentially, I guess, to recognize that early on.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think like self-respect comes in like so many different formats and everything like that. And what I mentioned earlier on, in terms of story and what that does look like from a long-term vision ties into that massively. Like I mentioned about, moving out to Miami, and I said about it being like one of the easiest decisions that I've ever had to make, right? Yeah. In terms of the signs and everything like that, right? And I think just understanding, how can I, from a self-respect standpoint, how can I give myself the structure to go on and do great things? And it's something that I've learned so much about being out here is I used to say to so many individuals, like, this was years ago, but I always used to say like, getting away from your hometown and going to a city is like one of the most amazing things you can possibly do, right? I actually thought that I was never going to do it. I used to say that to people all the time. I loved my hometown growing up. I thought it was amazing. Like I grew up in an amazing place. I had great people around me, but I actually, at some point I never thought I was going to move away. And it was almost like too many signs started happening where it was like things would present themselves. And I remember there was a few things that happened, right? I had a few conversations, and it was a 6-month time phase. I remember like in terms of, moving out here. But I remember always thinking like a lot of people from the UK are moving to Dubai now, right? They're all moving to Dubai now. And I remember thinking I want to be different. I don't want to move somewhere where everyone else from where I used to live are moving to. So it's like where do I feel most attached to, or where would I want to move to? Personally, like Australia was too far for me. Like I love the lifestyle that that appears there, but it was too far away. And Miami was something that I always had my mind on anyway. Like I thought the lifestyle and everything really fitted what I was looking for. And I had that in my mind. A good friend of mine moved out here, 6 months prior to me moving out here. I remember saying to him, I said, look, I'll see you out there soon. I remember knowing in my head that I was going to be out there at some point, but I didn't know when. And I remember I was in Turkey, right? And this is where this was like the perfect sign where I knew I was going to be moving out. I remember being in Turkey, and prior to that, I'd moved out, and obviously I was living by myself in London, or just outside of London, thinking there's more to life than this. Like there's so much more to life than this. There's more people like that I want to meet. There's so much more of a journey that I can go on, so much more of a story that I can write for myself. I remember being in Turkey and the sun was shining, and I thought there's so much more to life, and I've got to be living, like the sun just increases energy. Like you've probably seen it, right? Yeah. I know New York's lovely in the summer, but like here's great all year round. Not at the moment, rainy season, but I remember being there thinking, now's the time. Now is the perfect time. I don't want to go to Dubai. Like Miami's a place, like I'm going to make it happen. I remember coming back, that was on a Saturday. I came back on a Monday, and on a Tuesday, you know, my now like boss, leader, the owner of the organization that we work for, he put a massive LinkedIn post out that literally fit me down to a T. And I was speaking to them prior to this, and it was like, that was the attachment that I needed to know after 2 days, like everything now, the stars are aligned, like this is the opportunity that's now like screaming my name. And when that sign then came, like I just knew like this was a place. And I don't know about yourself, like obviously I know you moved away from where obviously you grew up and, you know, naturally lived in more places or cities away from where you grew up than myself. But you learn so much about yourself in terms of like, you're away from any distraction. So now you've got 7 days where you specifically create every single week that you want to create, right? And that's when you really understand what really and truly serves you. Like previously, I'd probably do more things to please others. Whereas now, every single minute and every single day, like I've never been so planned and routine in my life. Every single minute serves a purpose, like weekday, weekend, everything. And that's just in 9 months. Like, and what it's created, the energy of now how I feel, like even, you know, different like coaches or individuals that I'll actually work with. They're not always coaches. They're just people that I've met that somewhat benefit me in my life in terms of what I want to achieve in a particular way that I've met through being out here. And I think having moved out here, we touched on alcohol earlier, like I virtually haven't drunk here. I think I've drunk once here. It was my birthday. Like I wanted to go out, but with that in mind, like I've met some amazing people, but it's also allowed me to really see the true benefits from everything. Not only just like individuals that I meet, but environments that I'm in, you know, what genuinely serves me. And, you know, like from that standpoint, I'm sure like you've seen probably quite similar from the different places you've lived as well.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's so important to get out of your hometown. I essentially grew up in a on paper great place. I had I had some pretty negative experiences there where I definitely wouldn't have stayed. And I always felt like even before that, I always felt like I wanted to go on to something else. So I always had felt that. So I got out pretty early, but yeah, I lived in Philadelphia for a bit. I lived in New York, and yeah, I think that things were actually going really well on some levels in New York. But exactly what you're saying with the signs, I kept seeing signs that for some reason that I was meant to be down here. And I do think that it is because there are certain lessons that I'm still meant to learn about myself and certain surprises that may be in store that were not necessarily available in New York. So I think it's so important how you mentioned about balance before, like what's my version of balance? My version of balance is having discipline and consistency, but also being open-minded and being open to go off track. Like how you said you don't like to have a stringent 5-year plan. Like I never want to have something that is so set in stone or regimented. There's been times in my life where I've been way too ultra regimented and it's just A, not enjoyable, and B, can sometimes really not allow yourself to be able to see signs, to be able to take great risks, because I think that everyone that ends up successful in whatever version that may be for them, it's based off of taking risks.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Risk taking's like massive, right? Like even I left a really comfortable position, and like comfortability, like, you know, I'll come on to that really, really shortly, but I left a really, really comfortable position. And, you know, I did have like, obviously I was there still for 2 weeks after I was leaving. And I remember so many individuals saying to me like, you're mad. Like honestly, so many individuals, people that didn't even work with me, right? And they're saying that you're mad, you know, leaving the situation. Like I bought a house 3 months prior to moving out here. People saying like, you've just bought a house, like you're living alone, like you've got all of these things, like your career's like in a really, really great place. But it's about understanding yourself and understanding like how much more you essentially how much more you can serve, right? And with that in mind, I knew that I was meant for more. Like I didn't want to just be tied down to a particular location, and I wanted to go on and do great things. And I think that taking that risk, like calculated risk as well, really understanding, you know, what does that specifically look like? What are my chances, you know, of success there, right? And with that in mind, sort of course, you know, taking risks, but taking calculated risks. Like like another thing is like feeling comfortable. Like I hate feeling comfortable in any situation. Like if you feel comfortable, like you can do so much more.
Yeah,
like you can do so much.
In the wrong place.
Oh, 100%. Particularly, I get it at like not particularly past a certain age, because I think you should always be doing things outside your comfort zone. Like
100%.
You cannot grow when you're comfortable, like at all. And life is just constantly about growth. If you want to write a great story and everything like that, you know, like you and I speak about a lot, you can't do that in a comfortable position. And, you know, kind of going from there, you know, moving out here and doing certain things. I think another thing with signs, I think life will always present things to you that deep down you'd like to have, but from a higher mindset perspective, you shouldn't have. Like if you want to do great things, like you have to look at these and realize, you know, what road you want to take. Like I mentioned, like sometimes you might be thrown an individual that you might like. Yeah, you might, but it's true. It's true. I've seen it. Like you might be seeing an individual that you quite like. It doesn't quite align to your values, but you quite like them. And deep down, you want to keep seeing that individual, but you know, if you want to go and achieve great things, realistically, they're not the best thing for you. And it's about having, again, that discipline to understand they're not the best thing for me right now and move on, right? And it doesn't just come in the format of people, right? It comes, I'm trying to think of other, you know, other areas as well, but there's so many different things that might happen where, you know, that comfortability is there. It's there for the taking. But kind of working around that to think, no, I'm made for better constantly. That's maybe where some people can fall short, is kind of understanding, you know, maybe getting to a particular age where, you know, following the trend a little bit, understanding, well, all my friends are now doing this, you know, whether it be buying a house or getting married or, you know, having children or things like that, where if you're on a big growth, like kind of trajectory, sometimes it's, you know, it's not always the best thing if you want to go and do great things, right? So it's something that I try and, you know, understand realistically all the time, is almost, and it's not a negative mindset, but what is the worst thing with that particular thing, right? Understanding that, because then if it's not that bad, okay, you might want to look at it, right? Yeah. But if it's something that's maybe going to pull you back, you know, again, I always use this analogy, right? When it comes to growth, and I always say there's certain things in life, you've got to look at it as if you're, you know, like a rocket going up to the moon, right? And you've got so many different like bands on the rocket that's trying to go to the moon. You've got bands on the rocket that are taking you to the moon, and bands trying to bring you back down to earth. And it's all about untying the bands that are trying to bring you back down and keeping the bands on that are going to take you further. Yeah. You know, and that's an analogy that I use. And once you get an understanding of those, you can then create habits to just rise that trajectory so much more.
I absolutely love that. No, that's incredibly put. And I couldn't agree more that even when you said people started calling you crazy, I think when people start to call you crazy, especially in today's society, you're onto something good. You're on the right trajectory.
It's a compliment.
Exactly. I think in today's society, to not be fitting in is something extremely positive right now. But exactly what you said, sometimes you have to forgo temptation and do the harder thing. And when you are looking to do something big, the journey may have parts of it that are lonely, that are hard, that are challenging, but that's all part of it. And that's all part of the grander scheme, the grander story of what you spoke about. So I think that is absolutely incredible, and couldn't have said it better myself.
No, indeed. And I think, you know, with hard times as well, like there's going to be times, you know, in life, I've seen it, and I'm far from a finished article, like so far from it, right? Like in terms of, you know, the kind of the growth and things like that I'm going through. But something that I've, you know, kind of realized is, you know, you're going to have months where there's so much more hard work than any other months, right? Whether it be from a mindset perspective, motivation perspective, you know, everything like that. And I think when you really kind of get an understanding of being able to, like what we said earlier, in terms of locking in, you know, when you review constantly, but understanding when you need to tailor particular areas to kind of go even more all in for a certain particular, time frame, that's when sort of, things can be the most powerful, is being able to tailor things when you know you need to do it most.
100%. Yeah, I think there's certain seasons of life that you're just meant to figure out, and it's the people that are willing to write the harder story and do the work and go on the journey that are the people that are hopefully going to figure themselves out in the end. But really want to end on that amazing point. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your short story so transparently. And I know so many people are going to learn so much from yourself. I learned so much from being exposed to you and knowing you on the daily. So thank you for coming on and sharing your story and getting real.
No, it's been amazing. It's been a pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for having me on. And I really feel like I've got real today. So it's been great.
Thank you, Harry.